What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. This is my betting breakdown video for UFC Jacksonville. We have Poirier going against Josh Emmett.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all that is. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out.
And we are back for another betting breakdown video this week, breaking down a 13-fight card in UFC Jacksonville, and honestly, a very good card, very good fight night card. We're out of the Apex. I think we're going to see a lot of violence on this card. Just no complaints about any fights. Looking forward to pretty much every single one of them. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to it from a betting perspective. I do have 12 bets that we'll talk about. So a lot of action on this card, a lot of violent spots sticking out as well. So always looking forward to that. Coming off of a really big week last week, I do want to shout out my guy, Arman Sarukian, for cashing a plus 1,300 third round prop. Thank you, Arman, for waiting till the third round. Really appreciate you there. But yeah, really good week last week. Let's see if we can keep it going with UFC Jacksonville here. Before we get started and get into the picks and plays, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Check out DFS by the Numbers if you have not already. Tons and tons of content you do not see on YouTube, on the website. Early bets, breakdowns, all the good stuff. Tons of content on there. Check it out at dfsbythenumbers.com. Other than that, I'm going to get my breakdown out for the next Vegas card out pretty early, a little bit late this week, but had a cruise and then had like a wedding trip all in the span of like 7 days. So going to get back on schedule, expect some early content. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so I miss out on all of that. All right. I say we get into it then. Lots to talk about. We're going to kick it off with the first fight of the night. We got Brundage going against Dumas, a fight that was originally on the main card. They pulled it and put it on the first fight of the prelims. They want to kick the fight off with a banger. Hopefully, Jacksonville, everybody gets there early because you do not want to miss out on this fight. So what I did is, maybe it's the square play of the week, but, I'm parlaying up the under 2.5 rounds. I think it's a good parlay piece this week. Even the under 1.5, although it is very pricey at like minus 160, minus 170, I think it's a play that does hit. So for me, I have the under 2.5 in my parlay this week. I'll talk about the other leg very shortly, but I like violence here. I think both guys are live for a knockout. I think Brundage could absolutely knock out Dumas. I think the knockout's very live for Brundage, and obviously I think Brundage could sub him, and I think that's what a lot of people are thinking. We saw Josh Fremd sub Dumas pretty easily. It looked like just did not want to be there in his last fight. And then on the flip side, we could see knock out Cody. We could see submit Cody. So I just think there's a ton of paths for both guys to finish this fight. And with the way Brundage has been fighting as of late, it's hard to imagine this fight getting too extended. Brundage has been going in there and just going to war early and often, just throwing with bad intentions, just going balls to the wall. And, I think he's going to force a fight out of Dumas. So very exciting fight to kick off the card. Give me the under 2.5 as a parlay piece in this one here. Moving on, we got Jamal Embers going against Jack Jenkins. So I do have a bet here. I took the point spread on Jack Jenkins, the plus 3.5 point spread. Basically, I guess the best way to explain it is all Jack Jenkins needs to do to hit this bet is win one round on all three of the judges' scorecards. So say if Jamal Embers wins the fight, but Jack Jenkins, or if Jamal Embers wins at 29-28 on all three judges' scorecards, the plus 3.5 for Jack Jenkins cashes. If Jack Jenkins was to finish Jamal Embers, then it would cash. The only way this loses is if Jamal Embers finishes Jack Jenkins, or if Jamal Embers wins like 30-27 all three judges the scorecards, something like that. So I like this point spread here because I think it's going to be a close fight. This price tag on Embers is kind of concerning as well. Like I think Embers wins the fight, but I think it's a lot closer than this line does indicate. It was just last fight actually where we were getting Embers at underdog money against an undefeated fraud. And now he's just a big favorite against somebody who I don't think is a fraud at all in Jack Jenkins. So I think it's competitive. I think it's close. I think Embers probably wins, but give me that plus 3.5 point spread for Jack Jenkins. Moving on, my favorite fight on the card, and it's buried down in the prelims. We got Trevor Peek going against Chepe Mariscal, and this is going to close out my violence parlay, my biggest play of the night. 2.5 units on the under 2.5, parlayed with the Brundage. Dumas under 2.5 came out to minus 142 for 2.5 units. Was able to beat some line movement on that Peak under 2.5. I think it's like minus 350 around there, minus even 400 or something. So money's coming in, pouring in on the Peak violence in the last couple days. But I still think this violence parlay is a good look. Under 2.5, both these fights, the Brundage fight and the Peak fight. And I have it for 2.5 units there. Trevor Peek is a guy that, and this is going to be a car crash. These guys are going to get after it. And same thing with Mariscal, to be honest. Like, Mariscal's a guy that wants to go to war as well. So I think these guys are just going to stand and bang it to one-man falls. I think Peak is going to win this fight. I like the fact that Peak's the bigger fighter. I think Peak's a little more durable. Chepe coming in here on somewhat short notice, up a weight class. He's been knocked out 3 times. I think Peak is the first-round knockout here, but give me violence under 2.5 in that parlay. Moving on, we got Zhalgas Zhumagulov going against Joshua Van. Really looking forward to finally, hopefully, seeing Zhalgas fight after breaking his fights down like several times the past couple weeks. But I do have 2 bets here, so I think they're pretty sneaky spots here. So the first bet I have is the fight doesn't go the distance, plus 138 for half of a unit. And the reason I like that, and it's definitely a numbers play, like I think the most likely scenario is probably a Zhalgas decision here, but my goodness, Joshua Van is a guy that, first of all, he's coming in here on short notice. Second of all, he's taken a massive jump up in competition. Zhalgas taking a massive jump down in competition. And on top of that, Joshua Van's never seen the scorecards. He's never seen the 3rd round even. 100% finish rate in his wins and his losses, and he got submitted in his only loss. Joshua Van is fairly new to being a pro in MMA. I think it's less than 2 years he's been a pro. Whereas Zhalgas, he's been a pro for a long time. He's been fighting the kind of the who's who, fighting very, very good guys inside and outside the UFC. So I think although Zhalgas is not much of a finisher, I think this is such a step down in competition. The finish is going to be very live. We saw when he took a step down in competition against Jerome Rivera, he starched him in the first round by sub. So the reason I do like the sub, actually, though, on Zhalgas is because that's what Joshua Van kind of struggles with. He has no takedown defense. He's been subbed in his only loss. And like I said, Zhalgas' only finish in the UFC does come by sub. So I just think the sub prop is a ridiculous price this week. Could Zhalgas knock him out? Potentially. Could Zhalgas even win a decision? Yeah, I think so. But his sub prop sitting at plus 1,400, which does not make a ton of sense. Believe it or not, Van's sub prop is sitting at like plus 1,100. Which makes even less sense. Like, I think Zhalgas is going to have plenty of opportunities. Like, if Zhalgas watched footage on Joshua Van, you're going to see, oh, you can take this guy down, you can submit him and all that. So I think the game plan is going to be to wrestle, and if he does, I think that plus 400 is going to have his opportunities, and that's all you can really ask for with the plus 1,400. Does it cash? We shall see, but 0.25 units on the submission prop for Zhalgas, plus 1,400, and then a half a unit on the fight doesn't go at plus 138. Moving on, we got Tabitha Ricci going against Jillian Robertson. Sim fight of the week, I will not be touching it. A lot of people very confident on Tabitha Ricci. A lot of people very confident on Robertson. I'm picking Ricci, but if I was forced to bet this fight, it probably would be the dog money on Robertson. I want to get some dog money, but I'm not betting this fight. I think Ricci wins this fight probably by decision, but by the way, Ricci minus 130 here, decision prop plus 110, just ridiculous, but I'm going to take Ricci to win, but there's no way I'm betting on this fight. Next, we got Mateusz Rebecki going against Loik Radzhabov. I like the dog here in Radzhabov. He did miss weight for what it's worth, but I think it's another close fight. Radzhabov is a guy that really did impress me in his debut. He actually came in on short notice as well. He's fought some really good competition outside of the UFC. He's fought the better competition between these two. I think it's all going to come down to who's able to win these wrestling exchanges. I have concerns about the cardio of really both guys. We've seen Radzhabov slow down multiple times. We saw Rebecki slow down in his UFC debut. I just think it's going to be a close fight, a close, greasy fight here. Not much sticking out from a betting perspective, but if I was forced to bet this fight, it would be the dog and Radzhabov, but after him missing weight, kind of makes me want to kind of stay away. So I'm going to stay away from this fight as well, but the pick will be Radzhabov for the upset. Moving on, we got Randy Brown going against Wellington Turman. So Wellington Turman cut down to 170 for the first time in I think like 5-6 years. Looked really good. He looked good. I was kind of expecting him to not look as good as he did, but so that's good. But I like Randy Brown in this fight. So if you like Randy Brown, I would look at the Randy Brown like inside the distance. We've seen Wellington Turman knocked out cold multiple times in the UFC, once including Andrew Sanchez knocking him out cold. I mean, if Andrew Sanchez is knocking you out cold, I think Randy Brown can. On top of that, I've always questioned the durability and the cardio of Wellington Turman, and him coming back down to 170. I don't think that's going to improve either of those things. So I think the Brown knockout's super live. I have a half a unit on it at plus 195. I think the inside the distance is even safer though, but Wellington Turman, BJJ black belt. I don't think Brown submits him. I think the knockout's more likely, and it's around plus 195. I see plus 200 out there. So I'm going the Brown knockout. If you like Turman's sub prop sitting at plus 600, which is pretty wild considering that's literally his win condition. He's not going to knock out Randy Brown, and he's probably not winning decision. So if you like Turman, you got to love that sub at plus 600. Just makes no sense. All right, moving on. We got Neil Magny going against Phil Rowe. Yeah, I like Magny here. A lot of people like Magny here. This line's kind of gotten away. I don't trust Magny at this money line. I really question the durability, especially at this point of his career. I question the chin. He's been subbed 6 times. He's been finished 8 times in his career, and he's going against a guy in Phil Rowe who has a 100% finish rate, very dangerous wherever the fight goes. It's just a big step up in competition for Phil Rowe, and it's a big step down in competition for Neil Magny. So Magny should win this fight as long as he does not get finished. I think Magny by decision is the most likely scenario, but just like the Zalgas props, these Magny sub props are just wild. Like Phil Rowe, what does he struggle with? He struggles with getting taken down. We saw Witt take him down, control him. We saw Orion Kosei take him down. Orion Kosei take him down and control him. Magny can take down a Rowe, and once Magny gets on top, I think there can be submission opportunities here for Magny, especially late. We saw him submit D-Rod in the 3rd round in his last fight, and I think D-Rod's a much better fighter than Phil Rowe. So I think the Magny sub prop is live at plus 1,200, but what I did was I put 0.15 units on Magny sub 3 plus 3,800, and then I put 0.10 units plus 4,400 Magny sub 3. I'm sprinkling those sub 2, sub 3 props for a quarter unit total. I think Magny's very live for a submission if he does choose that path, which he should. I heard an interview with Magny saying this is a good fight to test his striking. No, it's not. Take this guy down and make it look easy. Grind him out and get him out of there late. So I like the Magny sub, but just ridiculous price. Do they hit? Potentially, but my goodness, just crazy prices for these Magny subs. All right, moving on, we got Brendan Allen going against Bruno Silva. I like violence here. Striker versus grappler matchup. I actually like Brendan Allen a lot in this matchup. The problem with Brendan Allen is you can't completely trust him, especially at this money line, minus 200. Like Brendan Allen has made some very questionable decisions in the past, striking with guys like Chris Curtis and Sean Strickland. And if he chooses to strike with Bruno Silva, his head's getting knocked off. But Brendan Allen has such a clear path to victory here, and that's getting this fight down to the mat. On the mat, it's not even close. Brendan Allen should just walk right through Bruno Silva, who's been submitted like 6 or 7 times in his career. Just has nothing to offer off of his back. Allen's very good once he gets the fight down to the mat. So I think Allen finishes Bruno Silva. I think he can even do it early as well. Bruno Silva, I just really don't like the ground game, and Allen's ridiculous on the mat. Like he submitted Andre Muniz, who's a phenomenal grappler, one of the best grapplers in the division, and then he submitted Christoph Jaka, who's even a black belt in BJJ. So I think he can submit I think he can submit Bruno Silva here as well. And like I said, on the flip side, if Allen wants to strike with him, he's probably getting knocked out. So violence here, I think, is the best way to go. I have 1.5 units on the under 2.5, minus 180 there. I like violence in this matchup. Speaking of violence, we got Gabriel Santos going against David Onama. This has potential to be fight of the night. These guys are going to go to war. Both guys love to be in these exciting war type fights, and this is going to be one of the best fights, if not the best fight on the card, in my opinion. Gabriel Santos is a guy that's just way too big of a favorite. He impressed in his debut, and people are very high on him. People are very, very low on Onama. I think Onama has an opportunity to knock out Gabriel Santos early on. I think the Onama KO1 prop is something to maybe look at like plus 1,000. But outside of that first round knockout, I don't see Onama winning this fight. I think Santos can win this fight really wherever it goes, especially as the fight goes late. Onama struggled with the takedown defense, and that's not something you want to struggle with in a guy like Gabriel Santos, who's a legit grappler, especially if Onama's getting tired. I know Nate Lambert let him off the hook big time in his last fight. Like, Lambert could have finished that fight like 20 times. If Onama's going to gas out like that, put himself in a bad spots like he did against Landwehr, Gabriel Santos will finish the fight. This is a guy in Santos who has a 100% finish rate, has power on the feet, has an incredible submission game. I think it's Onama early here or Santos late. Give me the fight doesn't go to decision. Minus 145 for 1.5 units. That has moved a tad. I still think it's very playable around minus 160. So love me some violence here in this matchup. And like I said, I considered sprinkling maybe like the Santos 2-3 props and the David Onama round 1 prop, but I just took the fight doesn't go to decision to cover both sides there. Moving on, we got Justin Toha going against Austin Lane. Low-level heavyweight fight here. I think we're getting more violent. So I think there's a couple of different ways you can play this. I mean, I was tempted on playing Toha potentially, and then I thought, why would I do that? Toha, At the end of the day, this is a super low-level fight, and Austin Lane, I was not impressed with him whatsoever, but the one thing that did kind of impress me was his ground game once he gets on top. His wrestling's not good, but he's very physically strong, used to play football. There could be a scenario where Austin Lane goes out there and just tackles Justin Toha, and if he can get on top, he probably finishes. But outside of that happening, this should be Toha all day, every day. I don't think the striking's close. Austin Lane, I don't like the chin. I hate the striking defense. I think Toha sparks him in the first round, but the threat of Austin Lane potentially getting on top of Toha was enough for me to pass on this Toha money line and just play the under at about the same price. I have 1.5 units on the under 1.5 minus 180. Austin Lane never been to a decision, 100% finish rate in his wins and losses, and his only 3 knockout losses come in the very first round. So I think Toha knocks him out in the first round, and I think the under 1.5 is the way to go here. Moving on, we got Amanda Hebos going against Maycee Barber. Yeah, I like Hebos, just don't like the price. Minus 195 to minus 200 for Amanda Hebos here. I think she has a very clear path to victory. That's the wrestling, getting this fight down to the mat. Maycee Barber stuffing takedowns at less than 50%. And the thing about Hebos, like once she takes you down, you are literally not getting up for the entire round. So Hebos can just win 2 out of these 3 rounds pretty cleanly. Just getting 1 takedown, I think, is all it takes here. So I know Hebos is probably going to be at a strength disadvantage, but I don't think it's going to matter here. I think she gets on top, wins minutes, grinds out a decision, but nothing really sticking out. Amanda Hebos' decision props minus money. I don't have any interest in that, but the pick is Hebos. And then we have the main event, Aaliyah Poirier going against Josh Emmett. I do have a couple sprinkles here. So I think the fight starts round 2. Kind of a popular play this week. It's terrifying. It's not something I'm going to play, but I do agree with it. But what I do like is these Topuria round 2 and round 3 sprinkles. It kind of reminds me of the Arman Tsarukyan fight last week, where Arman Tsarukyan's first round prop was like minus 130. On some books, his second round prop was like plus 4 something, and then his third round prop was like plus 1,300, right? And it kind of reminds me of that. Like a lot of people are expecting, or the books are expecting, especially for Topuria to starch Emmett. I think it could start out a little bit slower. I think it could be a little bit of a feeling out process here, and I think the fight's going to really start kicking off in that round 2. And when it does, Topuria is super dangerous, has a ton of power, great submission game. I like Topuria to finish this fight in the second or third round. If it gets to the 4th or 5th, we have some problems, because I have concerns about Topuria's gas tank, but I think it does finish in the second or third round, and I think it is Topuria getting that finish. I have quarter unit sprinkles on the Topuria round 2 prop sitting at plus 510, and then a quarter unit sprinkle on the Topuria round 3 prop sitting at plus 1100, looking to hit another round 3 prop hopefully this week as well. So those are the bets. Lots of violence sticking out. My violence parlay 2.5 units. The Brundage under 2.5. The Peak under 2.5. Minus 142. 1.5 units on Onama Santos fight. Doesn't go the distance. Minus 145. 1.5 units on the Toha Lane under 1.5. Minus 180. 1.5 units on the Allen Silva under 2.5. Minus 180. The Jack Jenkins points handicap plus 3.5. The point spread on DraftKings 1 unit minus 130. Half a unit on Randy Brown by knockout plus 195. Half a unit on the fight doesn't go the distance for the Zhalgas Zhumagulov fight. Zhalgas Zhumagulov by sub, quarter unit plus 1400. Topuria round 2, quarter unit plus 510. Topuria round 3, quarter unit plus 1100. Magnus sub 2, 0.15 units plus 3800. And then Magnus sub 3, 0.10 units plus 4400. 10 units on the line, 12 bets. It looks like 7 plus money bets. So yeah, lots of spots sticking out this week. Let's see if we can make some bets, make some money, and hopefully end June on a high note. Hopefully end it with another winning month this year. So we shall see. Best of luck, guys, for UFC Jacksonville. Leave a like on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Check out dfsbythenumbers.com. I'll be getting out some early content, I'm sure, for this next card, and then 290 especially, which is a card that I'll be attending. So I need to start getting really ahead this week. And by the way, these lines are moving quickly. Like I was not able to get ahead for this card, but we saw a crazy line movement, and I want to start catching up on that and getting on some of these early lines as well. So best of luck, guys. We'll talk to you soon, and see ya.